Hey everyone, welcome to Flavor Talk with the Barbecue Pro Shop Factory Team. I'm co-host Brian Neal, aka Mr. Freak of Smoke Freaks Barbecue.
And I'm Ann Neal, Ms. Freak, and together Brian and I are the tongues and testers for the Flavor Guide at Barbecue Shop, the world's first seasonings decoder and online buying guide. And joining us in Flavor, our partner, Jeff Belmonte, owner of Barbecue Pro Shop. We've known Jeff since 2019. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Hi, everybody. Great to be here tonight with all of you.
Hello. And tonight we are joined by our dear friend, William Mann, the mastermind behind PitGrit Seasonings. We first met William at our very first Steak Cook-Off Association World Championship a few years ago. And ever since then, William and his wife, Pam, have been true barbecue family, and we've been riding with that posse ever since. Hey, William.
How y'all doing? Thank you for having me on tonight.
Hey, we are doing great tonight, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So for everyone tuning in, we've got a great conversation planned for tonight because over the past few years, William has developed an awesome line of seasonings under the PitGrit and Pit of Heaven brand. We have tested all 9 of the flavors for the Flavor Guide at Barbecue Pro Shop. And I got to say, these are flavors that we reach for time and time again, whether we are cooking in our outdoor kitchen or indoors. In fact, just last night, I reached for the bacon butter garlic PitGrit for some green beans that we did for Brian's family who were in town. So, William, welcome to the show. We are so glad to have you here. And we'd like to kick things off with just asking you a little bit about yourself, to introduce yourself and kind of how you came to be what I like to call a barbecue guy.
Well, I grew up, my dad was constantly cooking outside on the pit. Back in those days, every man back in the 60s and 70s had a pit made out of brick on the back patio. And so that's where I learned from him. I picked up a lot of seasonings, recipes, and techniques, and that's where I really got my start learning the love of grilling and cooking and smoking. And
so you grew up in Texas, is that right?
I grew up in Alabama, a little small town in northeast Alabama, or northwest Alabama, a little rural town called Winfield, Alabama.
Okay, and so barbecue was a big deal in Winfield, huh?
It was. In that area, it is. It's south of Memphis. It's in that general area where it's really popular. Still is.
Yeah. What are some of the things you remember cooking out when you were younger and just getting started in the whole fire thing?
Well, I think one of the first things that he always got me to do is help him with his hamburgers. And, you seem like everybody sort of starts with that. And it moved on up grilling barbecue or doing chicken and Boston butts and steak. And so I did that quite a bit with him. But he passed away when I was 13 years old. So that was sort of cut short. And I would continue to do some grilling at home for my family and whatnot, and it's just always been a part of my life.
Yeah, well, it seems like over the course of that life, it's become a bigger and bigger part of your life. So, what all are you involved with in the barbecue? Just jump forward all the way to today. What all are you involved with?
Well, in between all that too, I worked in the oil field for 40 plus years and still do. And but I started a little business called Pit of Heaven, Pit of Heaven Grills on Wheels. So we were building trailer mounted competition style grills for several years. We sold quite a few of them in the southern part of the United States. And it just got so overwhelming between that and the oil field, I had to back out of that. So I kept the Pit of Heaven name, and that's what we labeled our seasonings as. But I rejoined the barbecue family back in the mid 90s and started cooking with some teams in Alabama, Mississippi, some local events there, and just sort of took off from there. And then, I sort of went through a hiatus again where work just got in the way. I just couldn't get anything done. And a gentleman by the name of Dustin Sanders. Dustin, I think, was the first champion of the SCA. He had worked for me. We'd been friends for a long time, and he got me involved in it. And man, it's been a joy ever since. I always say that I'm going to do a lot more barbecue, but I just find myself going back to cooking these steaks, and such a great fellowship and family that we see every week. I mean, everybody's family. I mean, it really is. It's not just acquaintances; they're family.
Yeah, I think though the time commitment from cooking steaks to cooking barbecue competitions, that's a big part of a reason a lot of people wind up going in that direction. But hey, let's rewind a little bit. You said you work in the oil fields, and somehow that tied into making custom barbecue pits. What do you do out there in the fields? You learn how to weld or something?
No, actually, I came up on the completion side, so I do the fracking and work over kind of work. Now, currently, I'm a frac supervisor out in the Permian Basin, Midland, Odessa, is where we do the companies that do the fracking. I've supervised those companies that do the work, and so I've been doing that for 20 plus years. That version of the business, but it's been awful good to me. It's to carry me. I've traveled all over the country working.
So how did you learn to weld and do all the things you need to make a trailer-mounted competition barbecue pit?
Well, I learned how to weld when I was in high school, and we had shop classes and whatnot, and I continued to love to enjoy that. Of course, I worked around a lot of oil field welders, and they contributed a lot to that. And then, of course, as the technology gets better, like MIG welders, I mean, it's pretty well. It's a simple process, so it doesn't take quite the technique that it does when you're welding with stick welders. But anyhow, I said, you know what? I love to cook, so I'm going to build some of these pits. And I built a couple for myself and different folks. Next thing I know, it was like, hey, I can make a little money doing this. So that's where it all transpired.
Huh. Well, tell us a little bit about the original Pit of Heaven pits. What were they like? Were those like propane tank pits, or how'd you put them together?
No, I never did use the propane tank pits. The reason being they were so heavy. So I had plates steel rolled. I was always around a lot of machine shops where they could roll that plate for you and tack it up. Then, you finish it out from there. And I wanted to be mobile because I had one in the oil field that the company built me. And I traveled wherever I traveled. That thing went with me. I cooked for the people that worked for me and other customers or whatever. It's always in the oil field. Cooking is just a big part of it. It's like a barbecue event just about every week out there with them. So cooking is a big part of the oil field, still is. And I said, you know what? I'm going to build these things, and that's what we did. And I enjoyed it, and it was it's one of those barbecue pits I found is everybody wants one, but a lot of people don't want to pay for one. So that's the hurdle I always come across. They said somebody's got a friend that can build me one. I said, well, you got better friends than I got, because there's a lot of work in that pit.
Making anything by hand is difficult, and steel ain't cheap.
Yeah,
You're exactly right.
One of the things that Brian and I have done over the course of our short barbecue life is we spent an entire weekend in the workshop with Mark Hunsaker of Hunsaker Smokers. Yeah. And he was showing us the process of fabricating the Vortex smokers, including his patented, Vortex and all that. And I got to say, he let me. You and Brian are talking about welds. He let me do a couple welds on the firebox, and I got to tell you, I'm a terrible welder. And ever since that moment, I really I can see welds now, like our M16s, the corner. I don't know what you call that particular weld, but it's it's just beautiful. And so I really, really never understood what all went into the process of building drums, in his case. And so just hats off to you. What an interesting way to, start, I think, your barbecue life early on. And for me, that helped me understand fire management as a cook. So I think that's just a really cool backstory to your seasonings.
Yeah, I had some good mentors on that too. Y'all know Joe Davidson, Oklahoma Joe, and I was telling over the years how many times I'd go by his shop and ask him questions about this, that, and what, because he was always in the area when I was working in Oklahoma, I could get over to his place and question folks about what they were doing, why. So he gave me a lot of input. So Joe
Boy, I
Davison's a
tell
good
you,
man.
once you've seen some pretty wells, it's really easy to spot ugly ones.
Yep,
It is. Definitely is.
very
Yeah,
true.
so how did building pits turn into developing the seasonings that basically anybody in the country can enjoy whenever they want?
Well, when I started SCA, I had bought commercial seasonings, and I was using those. I had mixed some of my own stuff over the years, and I thought, well, maybe I'll do this. And I was cooking on the Big Extreme team, Danny and them, and they've got great products, and they're very good friends of mine. But I said, I just want to get out and do my own thing and see what I can do. And so I just put together old recipes that I had used in the oil field, some of the stuff that my dad, I can remember him telling me how he mixed different things. And once you do that and you get some out there and you let people use it and they like it, it's addictive, the fact that you like to see people use it and they succeed and be happy with it. And that's the main part. I probably have given away as much as I've sold, but it's made a lot of people happy, and we just sure enjoy it.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's quite a leap in between passing out baggies to your friends and then you've got a label and a UPC code and an ingredient list and all of that stuff. So what was that journey like, from kind of going from phase one where you had some good recipes to now I've got stuff for sale on the shelves?
Well, it was a learning experience, but it was sort of simple to me. The co-packing, mixing part of it. Once I contacted Townsend Spice and Supply, Lawson and Shane have been so good to me, and they're great people, and they do a great job, and they assisted me at every turn, and had some other people within SCA that had dealt with the labeling and the UPC codes and all that stuff. So I had a lot of help doing that, so it wasn't as painful as it would be if you just sort of out there on your own. And but it was really an experience and a joy to when you get those first few cases in on something that you've got ready to, you got to that point. We had our first 3 seasons out there: our ribeye ranch, our steakhouse, and our comeback was our very first 3, and they sort of were made to go together with steak and other things. But there's so many applications for each one of those seasons; it's unbelievable.
So those yeah, go ahead, Ann, take it away.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so William, how long for those first 3 seasonings that you mentioned, the ribeye ranch, the comeback, and the steakhouse, how long did it take from the time that you knew you wanted to offer them for sale to when they were commercially available?
About 4 months.
Oh, wow. That's tremendously fast.
Yeah.
I'd mix. I'd been using stuff, and I give it to. I sent my samples to people I knew would give me an honest opinion. I love my friends, but you want somebody to be, to be tough on you. Say, that's too much of this, too much of that, or not enough of this, and so that's what I would always tell Pam. I said, give me your honest opinion. And boy, when she started, I was like, well, you didn't have to be that honest about it. But,
that's such a good point. And one of the things I've always been curious about with the makers of flavor like yourself are, as you're going about that flavor development process, and you said you've given a lot away and you seek honest feedback and all that. Is there like a milestone or something as part of your process, like, when I hit this point, I know I've got something?
Yeah, how do you know when you're
How do
there?
you know?
Well, you start seeing people that using your products, calling your products out when they win or when they walk or when they place. Or, I've had years where we've had 7 or 8 in the top 15 in the finals of the World Championship. So I've had points championships in Germany, in Europe that they won. Daniel Rader, Daniel Gavoni. We had had points champion in Australia, and so it's hard to keep up with, because it reaches a point where there's a lot of it out there, and you're not sure who's using it, not who. A lot of people don't. they don't call out anything or whatever, and that's fine. But, you say, well, I didn't know they were using that. So you start trying to keep up with it, and it just overwhelms you. But I knew that when people started succeeding with it, we'd hit on the right recipes. And I really haven't changed my mindset on how to develop a recipe. It seems to have worked for me so far.
So
Yeah.
Ribeye Ranch, Comeback, and Steakhouse, you said were all kind of developed to go together for a competition steak profile, right?
Right.
Now, is that your primary target audience or customer that you're selling to, or guys out on the competition circuit? Or do you sell them to other normal folks as well who don't drive 7 hours to cook in a parking lot?
Yeah, we have a lot of sales that has nothing to do with the competition side. And I wanted it to be, I designed these seasons where there's not a lot of salt, where you can actually put the flavor on there. Flavor is king to me, and that's what matters. If in that, the Ribeye Ranch, it was the salt and pepper seasoning blend that I said, if you want to add more salt and pepper, this is what you do. We got enough salt in our other seasonings that bring the flavors forward, but you can pour the flavor to it and not worry about over seasoning with salt. And it's cheaper to make one with a lot of salt, I assure you that. But that's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and
Gotcha.
I can tell you, as Brian and I have done the flavor guides. We've done flavor guides for all 9 of your seasonings. I know we've talked a little bit about the first 3, and I definitely want to talk about the other 6. But you made a point about salt, the use of salt as kind of like a way to fill up a product. And as I look at our flavor guides for the 9, we're seeing on our scale of the saltiness factor, like moderate, low to moderate, a couple of, a little bit more, but mostly 2s and 3s on our flavor guide scale. And it is, to your point, so great to see the ability to have really awesome flavors without the crutch of a lot of salt, to kind of boost that. And I think, the testing that Brian and I do, it's blinded, so we don't know what product we're testing. It's all, code names and whatnot, but it's kind of cool to see that trend, with your seasoning. So we've definitely experienced kind of what you're saying.
Yeah,
Flavor.
it really was a big part of what we noticed kind of across the lineup as a whole, is that it packs a lot of salt without, or a lot of flavor without a lot of salt. Exactly. And then when we first met you and you said, well, yeah, that was the whole point. It validated what we're doing, but also it's a niche in the lineup that I think is kind of hard to find, because a lot of them really, I would say in the steak world, especially, beef rubs tend to be much more salty. On our scale, they're usually in the 4 range if it's a beef focused rub.
Yeah, it's a bigger cuts of meat can stand it, and but the smaller cuts can't. And the thing about the salt, I had so many commercial brands that I loved, but I couldn't put enough of each one of them on my steak because the salt just keeps building and keeps building, and that was part of my mentality of doing it that way. And also, we have a lot of mature judges out there, and they don't like a lot of salt, and so you also think about that too.
Yeah. I was wondering if there was any of that involved in just making them more accessible to people who are seeking out a lower salt offering, because there are definitely a bunch out there.
Well, nobody complains about flavor, but they will complain about salt.
Yeah, it's interesting. From time to time, I'll field just Facebook messages from people I know or people that I don't know on our Smoke Freaks page, and they're often asking me about what rubs can I recommend that are low or free of salt. So yeah, it's out there. That's definitely a focus for many people.
Yeah, there's a lot of great seasonings out there in this world. I mean, there is a lot of great ones.
Yeah, and that is what Barbecue Pro Shop is all devoted to, is kind of being a curating source for all of those different things, a library of stuff that you're not usually going to find at the hardware store, at the grocery store. We love getting into smaller brands that are really doing something special and unique, and I think that's one reason you fit into the lineup so well. So since those first three that were really kind of competition steak oriented, the ribeye ranch, the comeback, and the steakhouse, you've had 6 more since then that cover a whole bunch of use cases, and we'll dig in those in a second. But before we go there, I'm just wondering how you decide what you're going to go after when you're working on one of these new flavors.
It's really hard to say. A lot of it is, as I think back to recipes or things that I'd done in the past. I remember a taste, and I was like, I don't have it written down anywhere at that point in time. I just sort of play with it till I see what's, how it tastes on a certain cuts of meat. And some things I set out to do. I mean, like my Texas PitGrit, I wanted it to be everything about what you taste in Central Texas on a brisket or a tri-tip or something. It's got a little more salt in it, but still it's not salty enough that you can over season it, and larger black pepper. So it's sort of not hit or miss, but it's just sort of I come up with something and play around with it and see where it goes. But there's certain ones that I wanted a good Southwest seasoning in my Fiesta. I love my barbecue seasoning, and we're going to do a hot and sweet version of that at some point in time. But there's so many barbecue seasonings out there. I'm sort of trying to find a niche of things that are a little different, but not too far out of the norm that people are not interested in it. You start melding flavors like Worcestershire and butter and all that kind of stuff. People know those flavors, and they know their palate knows those tastes, and you can manipulate those to where you have, with the same ingredients, have a total different flavor than the other rub.
Yeah, Fiesta, the Southwest rub, I'm going to guess that out of all of the ones you have, that's probably the one we use the most at home.
Yep.
And, it's
a little bit low.
It's
Yep.
hard to use a bottle of seasoning when you've got 400 bottles of seasoning in your pantry. And we use a lot of the PitGrit. I think Ms. Freak uses it every time she makes smoked queso for sure. What else you put that in?
I used to buy the silly packet of taco seasoning from the grocery store. What was I thinking? Yeah. Throw that out. You don't need that anymore. You just need Fiesta PitGrit. I really mean that. I put this in chili. I don't care about chili powder anymore. I use Fiesta PitGrit.
I'm the same way.
This is great on the rim of a Bloody Mary, I'm telling you. And the next one that I really love, this is a restock, is the Kickin'. The little bit of jalapeno. Wow.
Favorite.
It's nice.
Good
stuff.
Yeah, that's actually a takeoff of the ribeye ranch. It's got less salt in it, and it does have it's got a little bit more of a grill flavor type in it, and it's also got that little bit of jalapeno in the back end. And it's been, of course, y'all know it's been a good seller, and people love it. It's sort of my finisher now on the steak when I go to competition. That's what I put on last. It and the new bacon butter garlic.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Well, hey.
That's interesting. I've been playing with some finishers. You just have given me an idea. All right. It was in my cabinet the whole time.
So what do you think, guys? Should we do a little seasoning lightning round here?
Yeah.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We'll go through all 9 of the seasonings, and William, just tell us real quick what you originally geared that seasoning for, and then what are a couple of the favorite ways you've evolved to using it. So let's start with one of the OGs, ribeye ranch. What's that about?
Ribeye ranch was just our salt, pepper, garlic flavor, and it was just going to be the base for everything that we did. I added a little, I always call it a little something in there, and as soon as they mixed the blend and tasted it, I got calls from our co-packer saying, he said, this thing's off the hook. It's just like a ribeye in a bottle. And so people sort of picked up on that. But it's not just for steak. It's any kind of thing that you want to put your salt, pepper, and garlic on. It'll go on vegetables. It'll go on meat, go on eggs. It'll go on anything you need.
Yeah, it's got a ton of savory in it. That's for sure. Yep. All right. And take the next one.
All right, Steakhouse PitGrit.
Well,
let me guess, it's good on steak.
It is that. But I tell you what, I use it on a lot too is eggs, and I love the Worcestershire in the background, and there's a lot of those steakhouse notes in that. I tried to think of things that you have when you go to a good steakhouse and you taste that, and that's sort of how that was developed. But I use it on eggs. I use it on beef. I have a lot of people. I had several people in South Texas were using it on their chicken and scoring perfect scores. And that rub's won several NBBQA and Barbecue News awards. It's got a lot of. I haven't found anything that really it's not possible to go on.
Yeah, here's a view of some of your awards. Congratulations! This is I think Jeff and I were in Texas for this particular year when many of your awards, many of your rubs won these awards. And kudos to you, because that's some fierce competition. That this world of barbecue seasonings is huge. So to be recognized for these flavors is great. And I have to say, for Steakhouse, a lot of times people get caught up on the name and they think, oh, that's only beef. But I got to tell you, almost always a seasoning that says it's for good for beef is usually great on pork, and then next it's usually great on chicken. Just might need to vary quantity, So yeah, don't be so caught up in the names, because those flavors are pretty universal.
Well, here's a name that I don't know what it means it's good on. What is Comeback PitGrit for, and how do you use it?
Well, it's butter, onion, and garlic. And so anything you want to put butter, onion, and garlic on, you're good. That's sort of my third layer when I cook a steak. And it's got, even though the other two have some garlic in it, it just sort of adds to the whole flavor profile of the steak. Or it's done good on seafood, and it's won several more awards itself. But it's got a lot of possibilities on popcorn. I mean, vegetables. We use it on everything. There again, I know I say eggs, but we eat a lot of eggs, and it's good. It's good on seafood. It's a good addition to anything. It's really, what's really ironic is it's good on chicken wings. You wouldn't think it would be, but it really is.
Now, if I'm remembering right, that's one of the ones that's got a little bit of sweetness to it out of your lineup. Is that right?
Just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little bit. It's sort of, I don't really add sugar unless I'm wanting a sugary rub, but I will add a little sweetness to, you can get a little herby and a little savory to where it's a little bitter, and I try to add a little sugar to sort of curb those sharp edges off. And and you can overdo it, and you can't, if you don't want it. So,
another thing we find it's good for in steak cooking is to just add a little extra color. Even though the sugar doesn't have color, that caramelization, sometimes if you need it a little darker, adding a rub with a little bit of sugar helps us anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to add on our flavor guide, we rated your Comeback PitGrit a 2 on the sweet scale. Yeah. So, a little bit to take the sharp edges off, like you said.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Barbecue PitGrit. I mean, barbecue.
Now that season has been around for a long time. We called it, that was the original PitGrit. That was the name of it. And that's how the seasoning line got. I said, I like that PitGrit. If I ever do seasonings, that's what I'm going to call them, barbecue PitGrit or whatever PitGrit it is. And so that's how that got started. And it does have some sugar in it. So I watch my temperature. I try to keep my temperatures down below 350 when I'm cooking any barbecue. Of course, most of the time we're that way below that anyhow. But the barbecue PitGrit, it's been great. Now, like I said, there's a lot of competition out there for barbecue rubs. So I think it's harder to sell barbecue rubs than it is most anything else, because there's so many of them out there, and so many great ones that have a lot of barbecue legacy behind them. And the barbecue season is a tough sale, but we got a good product, and it performs well when up against most of the others. So.
Yeah, I sometimes think, does there really need to be anything besides smoking guns hot and Cimarron docks? Probably not, but I'm glad there is.
Yeah.
All our food tastes the same.
Yeah.
What's that?
I said, I wished it was as good as that Cimarron docks. That's a good flavor. Sure is.
Yeah, we've used an awful lot of that over the years. We might as well buy it in the 1-gallon jugs at this point when we're into summer and cooking lots of ribs. But Yeah, man, barbecue PitGrit is like I said. I'm glad there's a million different kinds because I just love being able to develop something
Absolutely.
that's a little bit different than what everyone else is cooking. So, yeah, what made you want to develop a Cajun PitGrit?
Cajun
Well,
PitGrit.
well, my wife's from Louisiana, so
There you
I
go.
had to, yeah, I had to do that one. Nah, I've loved Cajun food all my life, but that was a fun one because when when we were doing it, I was sending it to different people here in Louisiana, and I had some good feedback, and sort of got to where I wanted, everybody asks me, is it sort of like a Tony's? It has nothing to do, and it's not close to that. That I call that more of a Creole salt. This is a Cajun seasoning. You're not going to salt it up. You're not going to burn yourself up, but they're going to have all those savory notes that you can pair it with fish, seafood. I have people put it on steak. I do a Cajun butter, do a Cajun blackened steak, and it's just phenomenal with that. So it has a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, so what makes a seasoning Cajun? I'm not too familiar in general. So, what are some of the classic flavors packed in there to make it Cajun?
Well, one thing you wouldn't really think that it was in most Cajun seasonings is oregano, and oregano will bring all those savory flavors forward. You got some thyme, you got some oregano, there's a lot of ingredients in the Cajun seasoning, and one of the things that I want to do is I wanted it to have a little heat in the background, but it not be too hot for most people, and because you can get it to where if it burns too long, people just they turn from it, and then they have and then you have specialty rubs that are hot from the word go, and people like them, but they know that going up front. So I didn't want any real surprises. I just wanted to bring out the flavors of Louisiana, and I think we've done a great job accomplishing that. Now, like again, it's not salty. It has enough to bring all the flavors around. Most of my salt runs anywhere from 100 to 150 milligrams, which is not a lot. And excuse me. So you can pour on the flavor.
So, I don't make a lot. Let me say, I don't make any Cajun food. What could I do with Cajun Pit of Heaven Cajun pit grit that doesn't involve me making Cajun food? What's it good on?
Shrimp,
Yeah,
really
just
good on
boil some
shrimp.
shrimp and sprinkle it right in there. Or do I
You
put it
can,
in
or
my
you can
steam
season it
water? Or
up. You can season it up and a little butter in a skillet, and cook it in 2 or 3 minutes aside, and you've got a great little dish. Go over some grits or some pasta, or over just some bread you can dip in and get the butter with the seasoning on it. It's fish, just anything seafood. It works with it.
And Mr. Freak doesn't even know this, but he has had the Cajun pit grit in some of my smoked queso because I just love to experiment with flavor in smoked queso. It's got vegetables, it's got all this cheese, it's got some protein in it, and the herbs, like you said, of the Cajun, I just think are super cool. So, Mr. Freak, you've had it and you've loved it, and you didn't know it was Cajun.
yeah, go figure.
All right, so that brings us to Fiesta. We've talked a little bit about this one. Beyond the obvious, what are some
Yeah,
other?
we when I was doing that one, of course, I had a blend that I liked, and I carried it to work. I worked with a lot of Hispanic people, and I give it to them, and they just loved it. And somebody wants it hotter, somebody don't want it as hot. So I sort of reached a balance there. It's not hot, but it's got a little spice in it. But it's got all of those flavors of the Southwest. I mean, you just open it up, and you think of chili, you think of beans, you think of. It's great on chicken. It's won NBBQA, or I can't remember exactly right now, the National Barbecue News. It won first place or second place in chicken category, and of course there it is in the beef category. You can do a lot of things with it. It's very versatile, and I use it a lot too. And I put it on eggs. I put it on pork loin if I want that kind of Southwest deal. Or put it in your corn relishes, your salsa, queso, all those kind of things.
So, do you have any idea how they actually do the testing for those rubs of honor? Like, you entered it, I'm guessing, as a chicken rub, the Fiesta. So, do you have any idea how they do it to figure out if it's good on chicken?
They actually put it on the protein.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, is this a rub tasting thing? I just out of the bottle, but no, they actually put it on chicken, or they put it on beef or seafood. So each seasoning that you enter in each category, it goes on the actual protein and is blind tasted by judges. So
Respect. That's a lot that goes into that.
For
that's
sure.
one of those kind of things where I thought, well, I've hit on something when I won a couple of those awards. I'm like, there's a lot of great seasonings out there that we're competing with, and so knowing how they do that, they don't know whose is whose, and so it's good. And just like we all, when you're doing your flavor profile, you don't know, and and I think that even adds to the great part of it is when y'all like it, you like it for the season and not because you're friends with me or whoever.
Yeah. And, it's really interesting when Ms. Freak and I are doing our testing. There's some differences in the way that she and I experience different things. Like I'm a little better at taste and sweetness typically than she is. The salty notes tend to be a little stronger than her. But usually we've developed a system that kind of lets us find our averages pretty quickly. It's something like 27 different data points we take and then a few arguments along the way to get to those final numbers.
Right.
But over 3 years now of doing this, we've kind of gotten to where we're both pretty much able to taste things the same way. It's been a journey to really learn how to taste in the way that we do, and just take some practice. But hey, let's talk about kicking PitGrit, and what is that one all about?
Well, the kicking, it's like I said, it's the ribeye ranch with less salt, about half the amount of salt, and it's got a little bit more of that flame kiss flavor, and it has got a little jalapeno bite right in the very end. It's there, but it doesn't stay with you. And I looked at doing different pepper there. I look at cayenne. Cayenne hangs with you a little longer than most, and this way I thought it's there and it's gone. And I actually thought about the judges in respect to that. It's not going to be burning long after they move on to the next steak or the next piece of beef or next whatever. So
yeah, you said you were using that one lately as a finishing on your competition steaks. How else you like to use it?
I use it basically on. I use it on everything, really. If I want a stronger saltiness, I'll use the ribeye ranch. If I'm just wanting, just medium, and I want to put a little more flavor to it, a little more a little heat to it, then I'll use it. So they're sort of interchangeable depending on what you want to do. I think the other one, ribeye ranch, has got 300 something milligrams of salt. This one's got like 200, I think. So it's about half, I think, or not quite half. But so it's sort of interchangeable. And there again, it's a salt, pepper, garlic kind of blend, and you can use it on anything. We use it on vegetables. We use it on all of our proteins from time to time. And that's that's also another good base for a chicken wing.
Okay, and we really liked it on beef, pork, and seafood. We liked it on all three of those things, but I don't know if we've tried it yet on everything.
And Mr. Proof, the OG version of the Kickin', the ribeye ranch, was among our very first essential seasonings list in 2021. Right. We published our very first list. I think we had 10 seasonings at the time. Right. And that was, of all the flavors that Mr. Freak and I have tested throughout the year, what really stood out to us. That's a lot of flavor. And, when something really stands out, that's some special flavor. And in 2021, we were onto that. So, the kickin' version of that is really awesome too. And that takes us to the Texas PitGrit.
Well, Texas was just what it was designed for. We got larger black pepper in that. We got a little more black pepper in it, a little more salt. And you've got the cumin. There's four different chili powders in that, different chilies. And it was designed for big cuts of meat, brisket, tri-tip, the Central Texas flavors that people love. I know I do. And I'm not a real big sweet fan, so I like a savory rub. And that's one of my favorites. It's good on, have a lot of people use it on chicken. Of course, I use it on brisket steak. Sometimes I'll put it on my steak, but if you want that Central Texas flavor, that's it in a bottle right there. And
Yeah.
and it's got enough smokiness to it. I always say you can smell the post oak burning in the background. That's sort of what I had in mind when I did that.
That was what really stood out for me. That post oak flavor was just amazing on it when I first tasted it. And Kickin' PitGrit is a Belmonte house favorite. Goes on almost every pork chop and steak as the starter. And I have used it on ribs too, and it is phenomenal. It is phenomenal, yeah.
I use that as a base layer on my ribs. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And the newest addition to the Pit of Heaven family has been bacon, butter, garlic. And we just recently did our testing on this one. So that's when I really got to get familiar with it. And like Ann said up top, we've been using it ever since, including just last night. We had company over, and she makes these manly green bean bouquets, she calls them. But it's basically green beans with a piece of bacon wrapped around it. But I know for sure she seasoned them with the bacon, butter, garlic before they kind of sat in some oil and that for a couple hours.
I like to just throw vegetables in a Ziploc bag with a little olive oil and a little seasoning, and the bacon, butter, garlic PitGrit really, with the bacon wrap that I did around the green beans, just kind of seemed like
magical things happen to vegetables when you do
butter and more bacon and garlic, and this is just amazing, and it was. Thank you for the flavors.
You're welcome. Yeah, that was one of those things that I remembered that taste, that sort of flavor from my dad's steak butter when he used to mop it on his ribeyes at the end, because a lot of times if he was cooking fillets, he'd wrap them in bacon, and then it'd be that butter, and it'd be Worcestershire, it'd be garlic, and it was just that was a taste that I tried to establish, and I got some of those memories from that, and I like the way it turned out. We use it a lot on potatoes. It's great on potatoes, and
it's heaven on potatoes.
For breakfast, on breakfast foods, it's really good. I think you can a very fine seasoning like the bacon, butter, garlic. If you're cooking, you can season as you go, but season right before you serve. It'll make a world of difference in the flavor that'll come out of that seasoning. Because if you're having anything that's making a lot of liquid, it can get lost in that liquid. So if you season right before you serve, because it's so fine, there's no grains to it hardly. It really boosts whatever you're eating up. It just kicks it up a notch.
Right on. Well, I know they're all your babies, and you can't pick a favorite, but which one do you reach for the most, if you had to guess, out of all 9 of those?
The Fiesta.
Yeah, I think it's that way at our house too.
I'm happy to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love Southwest flavors, so I do that. But I promise you can take if you want to make a birria seasoning, you take 2 tablespoons of that, 2 tablespoons of the Texas, and there you go. It'll make the best birria tacos you can imagine.
All right.
And I gotta say,
folks,
there's a recipe, and just William, you got to know this label just makes me happy. Really.
Yeah, that was sort of fun when I come up with that. It's amazing. I built all of my labels on a little program on my phone, and then I send them to my guy, and he digitizes it all for me, and it's crazy.
No kidding. Awesome. So you designed them all yourself?
All my labels I designed myself. I sure have.
Wow, that's cool.
This Kickin' PitGrit, the logo on that, it just reminds me of like Batman and Robin.
100%. Wow.
And Jeff, what about you in terms of some bestsellers from the line at Barbecue Pro Shop?
Well, the bacon has been just flying off the shelf since it came out. And I will give you another pro tip is when you take your tater tots out of the air fryer, just throw a little bit of that on the top of it, maybe right near the end. Oh my goodness, it changes everything. So that one's a really good one. And I mean, as far as sellers, they all sell really well. That Steakhouse, we sell all of Williams products on Amazon as well, and those move really well there too. But yeah, I would have to say that the old standbys really are the ones that the classics. And the Texas one I think is a sleeper, William. The Texas one is, and I agree.
I agree. That's my second favorite, probably.
Yep, all those flavors in a bottle, which is pretty amazing. And that's, I think, like those last 2 ones you came out with. That was the amazing thing is just the amount of flavor you're packing into it. you're really hitting your stride. So it's exciting stuff.
Luckily, that bacon butter garlic is the bacon's what you really had to nail down. First of all, that flavor is expensive, and luckily it doesn't take a lot of it, and you can very little of it goes a long way, and you can overdo it. It can get lost, or you can overdo it real easy. So it's a fine line there, and it took a while to get it there, but we finally got it there.
So how does that stuff come? Is it a powder or a liquid, or how do they get that bacon flavor in that bottle?
No, it's all powder.
Yeah.
It's all powder.
Bacon, yeah.
I guess they can make anything they want nowadays when it comes to flavor, huh?
Yeah, they can grind that bacon or that pork and spray it on a deal and dehydrate it and make a powder out of it. That's the way they do the beef base. It's most of it's sprayed liquid cow. And they cook it, and then they grind it up and make that powder.
Somebody needs to come up with liquid cow as a product. I'd buy that. Well, hey, man, it's been quite a journey that you've been on, this whole barbecue thing. And I'm just curious, what all are you involved with nowadays? Where's this journey led you and some of the things you're doing in the broader barbecue world?
Well, like I said, this year's been sort of tough, but the plans I have for next year is we're really going to kick our business up a notch. And like I said, I work 2 weeks out of the month in the oil field, and come home and try to take care of things at home, do some competition, and push my product. But we're going to make a big effort in 2025 with content and going a lot of different directions, and some things I'll contact y'all with too. But we're going to make a big push. And I haven't pushed, but I haven't pushed as much as I should, or try to expose it as much as I should. And it's time to do that. People love it when they use it. And the biggest hurdle that you have in this seasoning business is with anybody, unless you have you got a good barbecue legacy of championships or whatever, SCA championships or whatever. It's you have to work a little harder to get people's attention, and your product may stand out when they get it, but getting it in their stores or in their hands or whatever is a whole different thing. And I know y'all been with me from a long time ago, and it's been super great to me, and I appreciate y'all so much.
Well, it's certainly true that you want to sell somebody something, you got to get their attention first. And hopefully we'll get a few more people's attention tonight, because these really are some fantastic seasonings that are super accessible. And like William says, you can do a whole lot with them. You think you've got more seasonings in the playbook that you'll come up with down the line, or are you going to stick with your lineup for a little while here?
Well, I won't put anything out this year, but next year, yeah, we're gonna do a lot of we're gonna do some small batch stuff. We're gonna put some things out there and see how they do. And if they sell, we'll keep them going. If not, we'll take them off the market. So we're gonna try to hit some little niches here and there and see where it goes. But yeah, we're gonna push our main line that we have now. We're happy with that. And so really the plan for this year is just get through Christmas, and then 2025 is going to be a big year for us. We've been working on some things that have come to fruition. We got to step our game up another level to get to another level, and that's sort of where we're at. And I'm not getting any younger, so I'd like to do this when I retire. So
I hear you, man. Well, hey, Angie's got a great question, wondering about selling in sets for Christmas. And as it turns out, here at Barbecue Pro Shop, we've got a bunch of different curated sets that we do every year for the holidays. But we also have this really neat product where you can go on and pick any 3 or 4 seasonings that you want, and we put them in a really beautiful gift box. They're perfect for the holidays. They got all this pretty red papery stuff inside, and really makes for a great gift. So check them out on Barbecue Pro Shop. They're really, really awesome gifts for the holidays. And what I like to do is give those to my business associates because they all know I'm into barbecue, but most of them aren't lucky enough to get to try the stuff I make. So, I send them one of those kits with some of my favorites and let them figure it out for themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, talk a little bit about where folks can find you and find your brands in the social media world. What are your handles? How do we find you out there?
Well, it's PitGrit Seasonings on Facebook, PitGrit Seasonings on Instagram and TikTok. And so you can find us there on all of those. And of course, right now we don't have our website up and going. It's ready to go. I just really haven't. I pushed it off because I wouldn't want anybody to think I was trying to compete, especially like people like y'all. That's not the point that I would want to do. And we'll have to get there at some point in time, I guess. But I'd rather buy them from y'all, and y'all have a lot more exposure to it than I do. And I appreciate what y'all do, and especially carrying all of 9 seasonings. Not everybody wants to carry them all. They want to carry partial of them. And when somebody calls me and say, "Where can I get them all?" I send them to there's 2 or 3 places that carry every one of them, and I send them to y'all or the other places. So that's we haven't decided to do that as of yet as far with our website, and we'll have to, just because there's some big stores that require that they want to see that, and it just shows that you have a presence, and you know how that goes. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, we sure do. So, hey, what's this on your hat? Faith and Fires Ministry. What's that all about?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah, this group of guys put that together. Ashley Henson and Mark Lambert really put the organization together, and I was fortunate they asked me to be on the board of Faith and Fires Ministry. And what we do is we do devotionals and little short fellowships at cooking events, barbecue events, steak events. There'll be one at American Royal. Jack Daniels had the championship there at the youth National Barbecue youth cook-off. Anywhere that there's an event, we try to have somebody there to give the Lord a shout out, and we got quite a few men involved in that, and I tell you, it makes the day so much better when you can go worship first before you go do your thing with your steak. And and the fellowship of all those people together for that, it just makes it even more special. And it's been life-changing for me. I've never been someone to get up and talking about my faith a lot in front of people, but it's been out of my wheelhouse, and I give it to him, go with it, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm honored to have been a part of it, and I hope it'll continue to grow. It definitely will. But anybody that wants to be involved, you can contact the Faith and Fires Ministry on Facebook. Ashley Henson, Mark Lambert, myself, Jody. There's quite a few of us, and get involved. And it's awesome.
Well, you took the question right out of my mouth. So about how to find them. So I'll ask one more. William, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave in the barbecue world once it's all said and done?
Well, I'd like to know that people, thought I had that was kind, genuine, and was honest and had integrity, and that I'd help. If you needed help, I'll help you, and at any time. And my dad always said that when he passed, he wanted to know that he loved and been loved, and that's pretty simple.
Right on.
William, well said, and you're living that. You're proof of that. Great wisdom from your dad. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight and giving us an hour of your time to be on Factory Team Flavor Talk here at Barbecue Pro Shop. And for everybody who tuned in tonight, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for
And we
spending
will
time
see
with
you
us, man.
next month for our next edition.
Thank y'all so much.
Good night,
Thank
all.
you. Appreciate it.